Hey everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Finding Peaks. Yours truly, President, Founder, and CEO Chris Burns, joined today by our Activities Director, Tara Woodson. So grateful to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. This has been a show, quite frankly, that I've been really looking forward to. It's a really dynamic thing that we do at Peaks that I think is really atypical in our field, and that is actually getting people up and out of the group chair. It's a concept that when I was in treatment, I would have loved to kind of lean into, but it wasn't like top of mind for a lot of people. But the idea that people are walking through a tough, weighted, intense curriculum, something like grief or identity and purpose, and relationships, this idea of mindfulness comes up, as well as ambulating. And I cannot wait to talk with you about that today. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so happy to be here.
Absolutely. So why did you start doing yoga initially? Like, what was that about? Was there an inflection point in your life where it presented itself? Maybe tell the viewers a little bit about that.
Yeah. And honestly, it was something that I kind of used as just a workout, right? Like, it was very Western. And then I started going to therapy in my 20s, and they're like, well, where do you feel that in your body? And I'm like, what? What are you guys talking about? Feel it in my body. I literally had no idea, because you don't know what you don't know. I was so disassociated from my body. And so then they started leaning me into a more healing version of yoga, which was slow and intentional. And so I started doing it, and I was like, they would cue, like, feel this in the back of your leg. And then I'd be like, oh, I do, like, I do feel that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful practice, because now I'm have embodiment where I can actually use my body for more than just this machine that gets me to A and B. Sure. It's like this beautiful sensory where I get more connected to life. And so after I started going to therapy and doing yoga as part of a healing practice, I was like, oh my gosh, everyone has to do this.
Yeah, that's huge. Like, what did it, maybe you can talk to the viewers a little bit about like that mind-body connection, because for so many years for me, been in recovery 15 years, for the vast majority, at least 10 or 11 years, those things were wildly disconnected. And so what is the importance of bringing that together, and what can people expect to feel in that?
Right. It's absolutely so important to bring the body with the mind, right? Like, so I always tell the clients, or just anyone in life, we tend to go so fast that we don't notice these signals our body is giving us all the time. And a lot of times we'll get to a level 10 when really we've been having these body sensations that we just missed because we are so disassociated. So when we give ourselves that time to become mindful and connect to the body and be embodied, then we get to witness those signals and be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting overwhelmed right now, and like, let me pull away for a minute before I get to anxiety, or before I get to a place where I don't want to get out of bed. So I think that embodiment is essential for our mental health.
That's so unique too. I don't remember those types of questions getting asked to me when I was in treatment. What are you seeing, like, for the clients that you get to work with? And Tara does Reiki and sound bowl healing and yoga, and she's got a plethora of mindfulness-based resources. But what do you see when clients come in as far as dysregulation, and what is not necessarily the benefits, but what are you seeing as far as when those clients are able to connect those two things?
Oh gosh, and that's when that happens. It's like the most beautiful experience. Like, I'm just so grateful for Peaks that they are willing to add this layer to treatment, right? So this energetics and the movement and the mindfulness, because I'll have clients that will like start just crying in the yoga class, and they're just like, I have never been present with my body before. And then they just are breaking down, and it's like this, beautiful thing to witness, that they are starting to feel that beautiful connection to the body again. That's just one example, but there's so many examples of them being able to calm their nervous system too, just with the breath work and ways that they never would be able to do that before. Right.
Yeah, that's really big and key too. Like, I wonder sometimes it's like, what insurance pays for and doesn't, but like, these are cost-effective resources.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so I'm like looking down, I'm like, well, all right, so I can breathe, that's free. We can do that, we can do yoga. I love the mindfulness side of things, because the resources can be on all of our tool belts.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And it's so accessible. A lot of times when I cue breath with them every day, and I have I have a curriculum, right? And so they'll do this breath work, and I'll have them do it every day, and it's the same one, so that they build the practice of it. And I'm like, I know it seems repetitive, but honestly, when you're at a 10, and if you haven't been practicing and someone's like, do some breathing, they're going to be like, are you kidding me?
Right, yeah.
Like now I'm 11, right?
Yep, exactly.
And so if we're doing this practice at a regulated nervous system, then when someone asks you to breathe when you're at a 10, you're going to be able to utilize that tool because you've been doing it when you're regulated, right?
Yeah.
And so then you're starting to get more present, come out of the emotion, the frontal lobe comes back on, and it's like, okay. And this is a tool built just by using our diaphragm. It's just the wildest thing.
Yeah,
So
that's really
easy.
incredible too, especially with like substance use clients, right? Because if
yeah.
I have a craving, you know, I have a craving that comes up, generally speaking, those will last a minute and a half to 2 minutes. Can I get mindful within that craving?
Yep.
And then I think when, at least what I've seen is when people can become mindful and present within the craving seems to move, because the craving oftentimes is stuck in what Eckhart Tolle quotes oftentimes as psychological time, right? The future or the past. And so allowing that, just from a substance use side of things, you know, when I first got sober 15 years ago, it was like, there's 2 things that can get between you and a drink. And I'm like, what is that? And they said, God or another alcoholic, may you find him now. And I'm like, I want to lean into breath work.
Right,
I want to get centered. I don't want to go somewhere that I'm not. Now, mind you, I have got a lot of resource with respect to leaning in and counterbalancing with another human
Right.
who's walking with me. But I really like this opportunity of like self-regulation.
Oh, for sure.
You know, because you're not only going to have a sponsor or your therapist or your psych doc or your community wrapped around you.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool stuff. Like, as far as the group process, I wanted to touch on a week that's really impactful for us, and that's Grief Week. You know, a lot of programs and a lot of programs I've been to and been a part of, they'll just walk people into Grief Week. Grief starts at 9 a.m. It'll end at 2, and we'll move through that. You and your team come in before that. Maybe talk to the viewers a little bit about the prep work that you do before we engage in intensive.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Grief Week is a different kind of thing of its own. You know, you walk into that room and it's palpable that they're walking through shadows and they're walking through some heavy stuff in their past. And a lot of times you can even witness that they're not here. They're not here and present. And so though the Grief Week in particular, what I do is I try and I don't come in at a 10, happy Tara. I come in and I meet them where they're at, and then I try to bring them back into the present with breath work, with a meditation, and allow them to get into their bodies in a very gentle way. I am lucky that I get to do this all the time, and the other weeks I get to come in and bring in this amount of joy and bring them into the present. So they're always going to be ping-ponging back from depression to the past, or in the future anxiety. And so I always get to celebrate that my job is let's bring you in the present, let's have some fun, let's remember the beauty of life and live here in our bodies, in our breath. And you can tell from when I walked into the room and when I left, I have them do a body scan before and after, and they're always just a little more there, whether it's more presence or more joy. And it's another beautiful part of my job that I get to witness that.
That is so cool. You know, I was at, I know you've been as well, but the Survivor, you think about Survivor at the Meadows, which is a phenomenal program. But if we go into that room after breakfast and we can engage with some mindfulness. Now I know there's a meditation playing and everybody's sitting down and dancing and whatever.
Yeah.
But to have something anchor you into the moment, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Because what we know to be true about trauma is we're not up here. It's in my body. And so I need to access, it needs to be an access point as I'm moving through a week like that to get into my body to provide some repair.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I really love that. And why wouldn't you want to go there instead of be here? You know, what I notice when I'm in Grief Week or Survivor or whatever it might be, I'm thinking about the letter I wrote. I'm thinking about my development. The last thing I'm thinking about is growing where my feet are.
Yeah, and being with yourself fully.
Yeah. It should almost be the movement team, directors of presence, and being where you at and empowering you to do so. It's a really cool thing, and I can't talk enough about it. I've talked about it on other podcasts as well, of just how unique this is, not only for our clients that we serve, but Peaks Recovery in the community in general. And so how can mindfulness-based techniques be used in the midst of crisis? Now, we've talked about potentially some substance use stuff, but how about on the mental health side, folks that actually don't cope with substances? How are you able to ground folks that are suffering, I'll give you a good one, from severe depression?
Yeah.
How do you get them to turn the lights on, be where their feet are, and move through that process? I know you've worked with a lot of people that suffer with that.
Yeah, for sure. you know, I somewhat treat mental health and substance abuse the same, right? But in particular, depression, they're already in this very lower level. Their energy, their chi, their prana is very low. And so what I try to do or emphasize when they are in a low state is actually try even just get the breath to change. So it's going to be more of a breath that's going to activate the system, kind of uplift the system, where I wouldn't tell someone in an anxiety state to do this breath work. But when you're in a lower state, having them do that, allowing them to just build a little bit energy inside the body through breath is a much better way than trying to do some diaphragmatic slowing down. Right. They're already slow, right? And then if you could get them to start to do that, maybe we could get them to get out of bed, do some movement with us and stuff, motivate them in that way. But going at it very gently and recognizing and just being present with them. You know, there's so much, you know, I had someone come in and he's like, I am just so low today, like I can't. And it's really just sitting with them and looking them in the eye and being like, I'm here, like what can I do for you? And that type of relationship then lets them trust you so that you can give them these tools to utilize when they're in that space. And I'll tell you, that gentleman now comes to every single yoga class, and it's just really nice to have that.
Yeah. I know at Peaks Recovery, we definitely don't separate substance use and mental health. I was just interested from a mindfulness-based perspective, but to hear that it's pretty synonymous as far as how they show up, I really love that. Some of the greatest joys I've had as a professional, you know, I worked with substance use for 10 years, and now we just do mental health. We just treat suffering. But some of the greatest experiences I have is when somebody who's experiencing chronic or severe depression, you know, goes from here to here before they leave. And it's just amazing to watch you and the rest of the team and the clinical clinicians do their thing and provide some authentic healing for people. And I think it's a little more simple than, you know, I think we've chalked it up to be over the years. So you've spoke about your curriculum.
Right. Yeah.
I want to chat about that a little bit. Maybe you can talk to the viewers about how you've set that up and what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've changed my curriculum quite a bit. But when I first started, I thought, okay, I got to do grief work. We're working with the hips. Like I tried to make it so the curriculum was very like copacetic, but I realized they're already like doing so much work in those therapy rooms. And my goal is for us to just create something that, again, brings them into the present, lets that kind of stuff leave and just be on the mat with me. So my curriculum has changed. It's more just about doing different body parts, making sure that they have utilized the same breath work enough times that it's definitely in their tool belt. Teaching them to trust themselves. A lot of stuff is around intuition and listening to their body. So a lot of the curriculum is cueing sensations in the body so that they could witness it and so they could start to build that trust and that intuition so that when they leave, these are tools that are not just, oh, I have to go back to Peaks to get it. These are tools that they're like, oh yeah, I can witness this. I trust myself enough to know how to utilize this and trust my body enough to be able to take control of my life.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And that's both inpatient and outpatient. Does anything change as far as levels of care? Do you do something different when they hit outpatient? Because I know you circle around the outpatient levels of care as well.
Yeah. PHP, I do try to teach them a little bit more of what they're going to meet outside of the walls, right? So some yoga that they'll see out there. And IOP is really just trying to help them utilize building routine, right? Because they don't have us every day with them anymore. So I just try and help them build morning routines and evening routines so that they can start to have this, you know, self-reliance and reassurance in themselves.
Yeah, it's wild to think that, you know, for a number of years, at least that I've been in recovery, it's like, it's an interesting message because it says don't trust yourself. It said keep doing what you're doing, you'll always get what you've got, your thinking got you here. There's a lot of negative messaging in our field that says that you're sick, you'll always be sick, maybe find people that aren't. You know, and you're providing humans with agency. Like it took years into my recovery to be like, oh my God, it gives me chills right now.
I just got goosebumps too.
Like I get agency. And so by the time somebody leaves 30 days, they haven't had the ability to be where they're at, be in their own body, have agency, probably from a really young developmental age. And the fact that we provide that and you and your team does it so intentionally is just very, very special to me. So cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's like one of the things I really want to kind of debunk, right? Is like we can't trust ourselves because we've done X, Y, and Z. we can't trust ourselves. And I just really, a lot of times, try and bring them back to, you know, compassion for that, so that because you can trust yourself. That intuition is there, that knowing is there. And for us to have this messaging that you can't trust ourselves because of is just not, it's not real. And so I try to bring them back to the reality that they are strong and they are wise, and they just need to slow down so they could hear that wisdom, you know.
Yeah, and really burying that into, and it's an interesting inflection point where you marry that information. Because what I always talk about inpatient treatment is, it's like, you're going to come in, you're going to do a 30-day curriculum, but you're probably going to get 3 to 5 years of therapy. Why? We turn the volume down, the nervous system settles. For the first time, it's an option to be where your feet are at. Prior to that, it's fight or flight. We don't have the opportunity to do that. And so I love the idea that, like, we can experience 3-4 weeks. And this is not nonsensical. It's like, we used to be told that we don't make any decisions for ourselves in the first year of recovery, right? But 3-4 weeks in, people are experiencing healing. And really intentional healing that can walk with them, and they can actuate and pull a tool off their tool belt for themselves at any given time. It's really cool.
Yeah, clients talk about it all the time. Like, this is like the safest I've felt. This is a bubble that I just feel like I don't want to leave because it's so wonderful. I'm always like, that's why PHP. It's like, you still get that bubble, but you got a little taste of life, you know, because we do. I'm like so grateful for Peaks in the way that everyone that works there shows up, and it does create this safety where people really feel like they are getting the deep healing that they need so they could take on life.
Yeah, and I love the way you kind of frame that too, because it's like, it doesn't have to go away, because we can provide, right? We know about how the environment informs, right?
Absolutely.
It informs everything. And so when we come to Peaks and we're around great people like yourself, the environment's informing all that. And they're like, man, I don't want to leave. You actually don't have to. You can build a tri-traded version of this in your own personal life, so that you can have people in your community that speak this life into you.
Yeah.
Which is really, really important, because I think the idea is sometimes like, well, this bubble's going to go. I don't think it's a bubble.
Yeah.
It's actually my reality, and I'm going in to get this healing, but it can walk with you. It packs well, it carries well. It's like a good DoorDash.
Good DoorDash.
You know, it travels well.
It does travel well.
I love it. That toolkit that you talk about, that the team's been recognizing, it's like, it's an empowering set of tools. And I just really like that. And I've been talking a lot lately. I've been reading, about to finish the dang book. Like, somebody told me it's a 3-hour audiobook, but it's like a 12-hour audiobook. It's called The Biology of Belief.
Oh, okay.
By Bruce Lipton, PhD. And this idea that, like, words matter for our biology.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right? And so the example that they give is that if you go in to the hospital today and you get tested for cancer, they're going to say, Tara, you're cancer free. It's awesome. Great. I'm not waiting for the boogeyman.
Yeah.
But if somebody who's had cancer before and they get tested and they're cancer free, what do they say?
Well, I'm sure they're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Good news is you're in remission.
Ah.
That matters. So now if I hear remission, I'm thinking, I look over my shoulder, it's scary. But why don't we just tell those people they're cancer free? And so anyway, a lot to unpack in the book, but this idea of words matter, empowering individuals matter, speaking life into them matters. That's what I really love about the movement and mindfulness situation at Peaks, and that you bring to the team. Maybe chat a little bit before we wrap up about the other side. You got Dan on the team.
Yeah.
He throws punches, right? So what's he about?
You know, I just love him because I'm like this kind of like calm, nurturing, and he's like, let's do this thing. We're just such a perfect like yin and yang. And so he brings boxing and he brings weightlifting, and he just brings like this energy that like will help motivate those people. He does self-defense classes for the women, and it's just like a really beautiful class or like balance between us. We have one class that we do together, and it's our favorite one. It's morning routine. So it's a 30-minute class. They start with Dan, and he's, you know, like CrossFit warm-ups. And then I settle them down into a breath work, and then we meditate and then journal afterwards. And the feedback from this class has just been like amazing. They're absolutely loving this very intentional way to start the day. And it's a good balance of like the activation as well as dropping into that inner world. So
that's dope. So literally they have a class in the morning before group starts. It's called morning routine. I walk into the office and I see it. They're like running in the group room, and then before you know it, they're sitting. But like, whoa, okay. So we have this opportunity to really entrench behaviors in this 30-day model. Call it a bubble, call it what you will. You're going to experience a lot.
Yeah.
But that morning routine really satiates and entrenches on like a foundational level what I will do in the morning to continue to empower myself, provide agency, and a quality of life that's pretty addicting.
Yeah, for sure,
You know?
sure, right?
It's so cool.
They have that routine that they started, and like they get to get that feeling that they really enjoyed feeling at Peaks every morning if they continue with it. So yeah, it is a really cool class.
It's so much better than being like, and not to say, and I'm really passionate about this, obviously, but it's not to say that the 12 steps is bad, right, wrong, or indifferent, but it is a tool. But I want to hear that when I leave treatment instead of like 90 and 90 or you're going to die. You know, that messaging, it's like, I'm 22 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not 22 right now, by the way. I'm 38.
Yeah.
But when I got sober, I was 22 years old, and I'm like, I remember thinking to myself, I have a life sentence of mediocrity. And I did this to myself. Just couldn't be further from the truth. Before we end today, I wanted to ask you one question just to wrap everything up with a big, beautiful bow. What is your why? Like, why do you do this? Why are you so passionate? Like, there's got to be some sort of story or connection, or is it just to be helpful? Like, what is it?
Yeah, you know, my why is pretty big, but I have addiction and mental health in my family, and I see this kind of trap or prison that they are wrapped up in, and I just want to be of service and like help those people and allow them to just get that little bit of freedom and self-reliance and trust and intuition and growth. And so I provided that for myself. I walked through my own challenges, and now it's like become my like marching orders, you know, my heart calls for it, and I just want to be of service in that way, because I know it's just some simple things that start to build that strength for ourselves, and we are our own, you know, temple. We can do this ourselves, and I want to empower people to know that they can do it all on their own.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that too. It's like this self-empowerment that just didn't fit. Maybe it did fit 15 years ago. It just wasn't being talked about. I saw so many people, unfortunately, use and never come back or do the things that they were talking about. But like, this is really nurturing. It's authentic. It's present. It's mindful.
Yeah.
Creates a lot of hope for me, and it should create a lot of hope for the viewers out there too. So I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you.
Tara Woodson, Activities Director. She's also Reiki certified, yoga teacher training at what degree?
400.
400 level?
Yeah.
That's a lot. As well as any other certifications?
No.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah, trauma certified.
Just straight up badass mindfulness.
Yeah.
Let's go. Well, I appreciate everybody joining us for the mindfulness moment that matters today with Tara Woodson. Until next time, peace.